Chinese are not just here to expand land issues. They are here to reorganize a population.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren and I'm Maureen. So I don't know if you guys have noticed just how big the Chinese influence is becoming in Africa. Yeah, but before we talk about anything to do with this episode, there's a video we want to play you. Just watch it and then we'll come back and talk about it.
So the brother Joshua MAPONGA is pointing out something that he had noticed that's happening with Chinese that's coming into the African continent. I want you to listen to what's actually happening, all the Chinese men that's being sent to the continent and what their strategy is while sending all these men to the African continent. Let's roll that.
The Chinese are not just here to expand land issues. They are here to reorganize a population, preservation of their own nation in other countries. They're overpopulated now, so they're pushing some of them here. Not only that, it's also a 30-year plan to take over certain parts of Africa. So the prisoners that are being sent here to come and work, they don't bring their wives. They come alone. So of the 400,000 Chinese that have come with the 3, 4, 5, 11 billion investment, that number could be much more. All of them are bachelors. Only few executives have brought their wives, but the rest are prisoners and bachelors who now are making children in Africa. And these children will be Chinese and African, but being African, these children are Chinese, who are going to be educated in our system, who will receive scholarships to go back to China and come back and become presidents and ministers in Africa. And by right, they are citizens because we're born here. It's a strategy. In 30 years' time, you will call me back. I hope I'll still be able to talk. And you will recite this. When you have the first vice president, the first minister, the first president in one of the African countries being a crossbreed between Chinese and African.
I mean, are we seeing this happening?
Go to villages and you see those children running up and down. In Zimbabwe, we have them. In Uganda, you have them. In Kenya, you have them. It's insignificant now. Let's not talk much about it. There are women right now who are pregnant with Chinese kids. There are some who are breastfeeding Chinese kids. And it's going. It's going. We saw it in Ghana, the Rawlings, a colored guy. How did a colored man end up as a president of a country? There's nothing. We saw it in Botswana. How did Seretse Khama become the president when he's a colored? His mother is British and his father was Tswana, and the father was a president. 2 generations later, he became the president himself. So it's nothing funny. This is exactly what is happening.
So guys, as Joshua MAPONGA has said, and he's left quite a lot of things for us to think about, right? Because from what he's saying, I can tell you for a fact, I think this is how the West has always maintained its power in Africa and much across other places that they influence, you know. So you look at these people who, but there was a time in Kenya where, and let me just speak for where I come from. There was a time in Kenya where Chinese were so many, you could literally walk down the street and find a Chinese person. Not to say that right now they aren't common in our country, they are. But back then, you'd find Chinese who are coming, especially during the time that there's this something called the SGR that was being built in Kenya. You know, that was an initiative between the government of Kenya and the government of China. So people working on those, you found that a lot of people working on those SGR and development infrastructure, they came from China. As MAPONGA says, these are prisoners who are being brought here in Africa to work. And the funny thing is that these people are not laying with the women from the cities because they know that women from the cities might be too clever to catch on to what they're trying to do. So you'd find a lot of cases of a lot of pregnant women from the village, yeah, a lot of pregnant women from the village, and whose children have been fathered by Chinese people, you know, like, and as he says, right now, maybe it's a small number compared to the demography of Kenya, so it's insignificant and it's hardly noticeable. But this number will keep increasing until such a point where we have a president who is half Chinese, half Kenyan. And what will this president do? This president will always make sure, especially when Kenya wants to do business with outsiders, he will always make sure to put China first before America. He will always make sure to put China first before France, you know.
For Kenya too.
Yeah, I think this is a good strategy by China to gain control over the title world power, you know.
Yeah, but I don't know, guys, you let us know what you think about this whole topic, because I feel like Africans should wisen up. But then again, when you look at this situation, women from the village are not very exposed, so you see why they're being gullible and they're falling for this, you know, getting pregnant by Chinese men. You know, there was a time, right now you might say China is not racist, but we don't buy that anyway. So why do I talk about this? Because there was a time when they had started coming into our country, a lot of them, these people were so racist to the point that
someone had the guts. Someone felt like he could, a Chinese man who is even poorer than, well, let me not look like you know, but he was poor because he's here as because he was a prisoner from his own country, and he was sent here as punishment to work on the infrastructures. And that is the kind of person who felt it right to stand up and abuse a whole president of Kenya and feel like he would get away with it. That is how low they looked to Africans, you know. That is how low they thought, and they thought about Africans, and they looked to Africans. This person we are speaking of, he blatantly abused our president and even called him a monkey, and this person are deportation, you know. Back then our president was Uhuru Kenyatta. I don't know if you guys know about him. So he abused Uhuru Kenyatta and called him a monkey, a whole president. Imagine. And that man is coming from a country that at the time was looking to, you know, further and strengthen the relationship between Kenya and China, but he didn't care about that. He still went on ahead and did it. Right now I'm seeing a lot of Chinese coming and they're singing a different song, you know. They're trying to repair their image with the African people. They're trying to, I'd call it a PR kind of scenario. But you know, when someone shows you who they are the first time, believe it. I believe that Chinese are still racist towards Africans, because these are the same people who, when doing advertisement commercials, they would literally put a black man in a washing machine and make him come out as a white man.
What does that
tell you guys, you know? So, you know,
during that time also, right now they're trying so much to repair their image with the Africans, but there was a time that there was a Chinese man, and that story was on BBC and it really trended. A Chinese man who was going to the deep sides of the villages somewhere in Africa. I don't know, I can't remember the country.
Was it in West Africa?
It was either West or Central Africa, a country in West Africa or Central Africa. Now he went in the deep part of the African village, and he was teaching kids Chinese languages, but not the way you think.
He was teaching them slurs that are used to you know, offend black people, and he would upload them in the Chinese website back home, and he'd make a lot of money with those clips. So these innocent kids, then they would just repeat what this man was saying, and without them knowing what it truly meant.
Those same allegations, Chinese man, this very Chinese man who was using these kids to earn money, and he's making them say derogatory terms towards themselves. He would, it said in the documentary, if you go watch it, he would beat these kids up. He would beat them up to make them perform. He would, you know, just child labor and mistreating these kids, so just so he could get his video clip and upload and get a lot of money, you know. So personally, I feel like Joshua Maponga's concerns are well within the, you know, you need to look at them with a very careful eye, because he says what will happen 30 years from now,
you'll have a lot of Chinese African citizens in Africa, and most of them will, aside from them being loyal to Africans, they'll also be loyal to China. So their allegiance will be double, you know.
Another thing I want to remind you guys is, if you take a deep dive into the history of Egypt, right? It is said that the first Egyptians, the original Egyptians were black. You understand? And if you don't know about this, you can just go do your own research. But it is said that the original settlers, the first Egyptians, were black. So the question you're asking yourself is, how then did the Egyptians
end up with the Egyptians that look the way they look right now? How did we get stuck with white Egyptians? It's because of how when the Arabs were coming to Egypt and when they mingled with the people, you know, it's like they were washing out the black race, you know. It's like they were washing out the black race, and eventually the black race just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, and that also brings the debate about what race Cleopatra was. Guys, that one I'm going to leave you on the comment section. Let us know if
what
you know 100%, you know that Cleopatra was this race, and with supporting evidence, tell us why you think that. But we are not into argue. We are not going to. It's not an episode about where we're arguing about race.
But what you see Joshua Maponga saying is that China, they don't necessarily have to go to war like physically the way Americans do. They just start by these small things. First of all, converting African citizens into Chinese African citizens. You get what I'm saying?
Offering them sponsorships to go study
China instead of America. You get what I'm saying? Slowly by slowly, if things continue like this, Africans will be more, their allegiance will be more towards the Chinese people than the Westerners, you know. Yeah, so I think, and if you see during the medieval times, you know, even in movies, how they usually conquer kingdoms. For example, even with the Game of Thrones, or I don't know if that is a good idea, when two kingdoms the two princes and princesses would marry each other from different kingdoms, you know, so that the allegiances could be created. Here, just the same case with what China is trying to do in Africa. You know, you marry two races and then they have a kid. That child will have allegiance in Africa and in China more than it will recognize itself as its allegiance to the Westerners, you know. It might be easy for people to say, you know, Africans, please wake up, don't do this, don't do that. But, you know, at the end of the day, if things were meant to happen like this, you are not going to walk up to a person and tell them don't marry this nationality, because obviously at some point, I think in Africa we have the purest form of blackness that is going to not be black anymore. But anyway, I don't know, we're just watching and seeing how this whole scenario will play out, because it's not just the Chinese people alone. Right now, even white people are coming to marry in Africa, so, and black people are marrying each other. So at the end of the day, let's just see where all this mess is going to end up in. So
as usual, stay woke. If you have anything to add to this episode, kindly leave your thoughts on the comment section. As usual, we appreciate you for watching, creating time to come and join us on every episode that we do create. Thank you so much, and you can share the video with someone you think might benefit from this episode.
Yeah.